Well, Christy, thank you so much for being here on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I'm really excited to have you here. You are going to talk to us a lot about what you do, and in particular about how you made such a huge success in your business. So I'm really interested to hear how you did it and obviously share that with the audience. But before we get started, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. So basically I'm a copywriter and email marketing strategist, and I help coaches and course creators write personality-driven copy and set up email marketing systems so that they can automate the sales process and sell their signature programs on autopilot.
That's amazing. And I have to say, I take my hat off to you, because when I started my business and I had to learn how to write copy and how to write content, oh my gosh, it was so painful. And I had to go through all those stages. And I wish I knew somebody like you at that point then who could have helped me out. But what I love to share is obviously everyone is unique, and everyone has got their own unique story as to how they got started and how that journey has taken them to where they are now. So how did you get started, and how did you get drawn into copywriting, and how did you evolve your business?
Well, copywriting was actually never on my radar. It was kind of an accidental process. I've always sort of been a creative and a writer. And actually about 12 years ago, I went back to school to finish my bachelor's degree, and I got a degree in English with a writing focus and a psychology minor. And I had kind of been playing around a little bit with freelance writing. I did some, local publications, print publications, some online stuff. And, I didn't even know what copywriting was. And probably a lot of people that aren't in our industry or our niche don't know what copywriting is. But it's kind of funny. A few years ago, a friend of mine who's a graphic designer, she reached out because she knew I had done some writing, but she was designing websites for coaches, and they were, her projects were getting delayed because they were getting stuck on writing about themselves. So she reached out to me, and I was like, yeah, I think I can do this. I totally didn't know if I could do it, but I thought, I'd give it a shot. I love, talking to people. I love listening to their stories and really kind of finding those points of connection that, make us all connected, the things that bring us all together, the things that we have in common. So it just kind of snowballed from there. It was amazing how quickly my business grew. I'm very lucky.
Oh my gosh, it's fascinating to hear, because most people, when they start a business, they always have to say, well, I can't start a business until I figure out what it is that I need to do. And what I like about your story, which is so organic, is you just had that skill. You didn't know that it was going to lead to where you are now, which is amazing. But you had that skill, and it just kind of organically transpired into you going, oh, I can do this. I can, create a business of this by helping other people out. And I love your story about that, because it just shows that for those of you listening, if you're still in the beginning stages or still trying to figure out in which direction you need to go, grow a business, start a business, just think about your skills and what you can use, and then obviously let that organically grow and flow and show you the way, really. Yeah, no, and I absolutely love what you're saying about your friend being a website designer, because I can relate. As a coach, when I had to design my website and had to write the content, my website was up and running and everything was there, but the content was cringe-worthy. And it's taken me a long time in order to get that to a stage to where I really appreciated it. But also, I know that I'm going to change it again in the future, because there's that constant growth and constant change still happening. So maybe I would get you to come back and say, okay, I'm rebranding. Can you help me with my content? Otherwise, it's going to take me months again just to get that rebrand out.
Yeah, well, that's so true. Like, you're kind of constantly evolving. You're pivoting a little bit here and there. Maybe your offers are changing. Things are always looking a little different because you evolve and grow as a person. And I think, it's funny because there's so much that kind of goes into writing copy for a website, say, because, there's a science to it. It's not just about writing, pretty sentences that are grammatically correct. The whole point of copywriting is to drive sales. So, when you're starting out, all of that can be so overwhelming. Like, how do I include calls to action? How do I focus on the benefits versus the features of what I'm offering? How do I showcase my personality so that I'm attracting, the right kind of clients to my business? So yeah, it's tricky.
It is tricky, and especially if you don't have that skill. It is a skill that you can develop. Okay, let's not say this is you're born with it. It's a skill that you can develop and you can grow. But yes, you've got to focus on it, and you've literally going to stick with it like you did. You had that kind of background already, but you stuck with it and you evolved it and you kept on practicing and going with it. And now obviously you've got a business. But I think that segues very nicely into what you want to talk to us about. And you are going to talk to us about the 4 things you did to kind of switch from a freelancer to a CEO. But I think hand in hand with that, you also want to talk about how you just really went from charging $35 an hour to selling 10K packages. And I think that's just phenomenal. Talk to us about that. I'm really intrigued to hear your story and how you did it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So it is crazy. My business has grown very, very quickly. And I will say, this isn't my first go round. Like, I've had other things that didn't work out. So, you can have as many chances as you want. Let me just put that out there. But so when I first started out as a copywriter, I literally did not know what to charge as a copywriter. So I Googled it. I literally Googled, what does a copywriter get paid? And, the prices were all over the place, of course. And I just kind of went middle of the road, something that sounded good. I picked $35 an hour. I was like, okay, good. That sounds great. I'm going to get paid to write. So, it went from there, and I quickly became, very, very busy because that's cheap, right? It's very cheap. And, people were happy with my work. So I'd get repeat clients. My clients would refer me to other clients. And, they're very quickly, I would say probably within 3 to 4 months, I was working 6 or 7 days a week, and it just really wasn't sustainable. So the first thing that I did was I raised my prices. And, that probably sounds pretty obvious, but it's a little scary when you're just starting out. I felt like I was just starting out, I was like 4 or 5, 6 months in. And, I had to explain to clients who had worked with me before that, no, my price isn't $35 an hour anymore. Now it's $50 an hour. And I think I got up to like $75 an hour. There was always that fear around, like, are they going to hire me again? Because are they going to see the value in paying a higher price than they paid before? And the reality was, none of my clients had an issue with it. So it really, excuse me, it just kind of goes to show you that you get to decide, right? Like, you get to decide what your work is worth. And it just kind of naturally, it really happened organically.
Yeah. And I think also because you've already proven yourself and your clients really appreciated what you do, they could see the value of the work that you were offering for them. So at that point when you said, I am increasing my prices, they were like, well, yeah, that's a no-brainer. I'm happy to pay that, because let's face it, if they didn't find you in the first place, they would have had to pay those prices anyway to find somebody else who was in that kind of price range. But also, right. I think from their point of view, they had that trust in you, and that is so important. So for those of you listening, if you're now in your business and you're thinking about raising your prices, just go and do it, because you know what the value are that you are giving to your clients. And yes, and it's up to you to step up. It's like Christy said, you can make that decision. You can make as many decisions as you want in your business, and that would be one of them. So just go for it.
The thing that I realized too was that, I was not in business to just cover my expenses, right? Like, obviously we're all doing this because we want to make decent money. And, I hadn't factored that into the equation. You know what I mean? I just picked a number that sounded pretty good. That was certainly more money than I had made at other things that I had done. But I didn't realize, that it was barely going to cover all of the expenses of running an online business. So, it just really I wasn't being paid what my work was worth, really.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about the 4 things you did to switch then from freelance writing to CEO. And I think that is also very important, because I know that there are a lot of freelancers out there, but that's what they're all concentrating on. They're just freelancing and they're working the whole time. But then you've got to step away and you've got to put the CEO hat on and realize that you're actually in a business and you've got to run this business. You're going to work on building this business. So talk to us a little bit about what you did then.
So that was the first thing. So the first thing was I raised my prices. The second thing was, and this really happened pretty quickly after I raised my prices, that I switched from charging an hourly rate to selling packages. And, that was a hard one to wrap my mind around, because so many of us, I think, we have to be working a certain amount of hours to earn the money, but it was really about understanding that I should be paid for my expertise, right? Not just my time. And I think the thing about switching to packages too, in terms of looking at it from, the process of being a CEO, is that it drew some boundaries for me in terms of like what was included and what wasn't. Because when I was charging hourly rates, I would be on the phone with clients. I would be emailing back and forth. I would be, answering Voxer messages, all these little things that I wasn't charging for, but yet I was doing work. You know what I mean? So when I set up package pricing, I was able to say, okay, well, this many calls are included. We'll have email access from this time to this time. And, that was kind of more of like, oh, I'm a CEO. I'm not just tossing in work here and there. And, or even if I was charging for that, like, it would just be silly, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. So it was more of seeing kind of the big picture, right?
Yes.
The big picture of my business.
Yeah. And I like what you said as well. It's about setting those boundaries. So those packages really are, in some sense, where you are setting those boundaries. And it's almost like your terms as well, where people then see, oh, okay, so I'll have access to Christy from this time to this time via email. And, if I just call her for no reason, that will be basically one call done from the package. Right. And in a nice way. Yeah, but in a nice way. But again, I think that kind of lifted a heavy weight off your shoulders as well, knowing that you can now step back, breathe, and obviously schedule everything accordingly instead of just rushing hour past hour and just trying to make ends meet.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a huge change because, I was just doing so much. My kind of philosophy was to over deliver, but it was getting to the point of, it just wasn't making sense anymore.
Yeah.
So that was, one of the best things that I ever did. The third thing is that I outsourced before I was ready, or before I felt ready to outsource.
Amazing.
And that's a scary one, especially if you've never had to hire a subcontractor or, get help when you're starting out, you're kind of doing all the things. And I think a lot of us as entrepreneurs, we have this idea that, I need to be making X before I can outsource. But the thing I realized is that I was keeping myself from doing the things that were bringing more clients into my business. So if I couldn't focus on, pleasing the clients I had and also connecting with new potential clients, then I wasn't going to have a business for very long. So my first outsourcing was a VA. And so, that was a huge step, and I did it well before I thought I could afford it. And it ended up, paying for itself 5 times over by the end of the first year. So that was amazing.
I'm glad you're saying that as well, because for those of you listening, I really want to point out what Christy is saying. She went and she started outsourcing before she was ready. And it is true. A lot of people, I had the same mentality at one point where I thought, I'm not going to get a VA until I make X. And that's the wrong way of thinking about it, because if you are struggling to make X, well, just think about how much your time is really worth, because anything that you can outsource to somebody, how much value would it be for you to get that time back? If somebody else could take care of something that it would have taken you 2, 3, 4 hours to do, how much value would those 2, 3, 4 hours be for you to end up marketing and getting more clients back into your business? And for what you even know, is that VA or that person that is helping you out, they would do the work in half the time because they're more experienced and they're more, in a level of doing things quicker than you are. And also because that's maybe their passion. Maybe one of the things that you didn't want to do is not a passion of yours. So if it's not a passion of yours and you don't like doing it, yes, it will take you longer. So I really like what Christy is saying, is definitely think backwards almost. Think about doing things before you're ready to do them.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, this is the God's honest truth. I hired my VA in September or at the end of August. And the next month I sold my first $8,000 package.
Amazing.
The following month I sold my first $10,000 package. So it literally paid for itself that quickly.
Yes.
So get on it. Outsource.
Oh my gosh. Outsource. Absolutely. If you're taking one thing away from today, outsource. Start getting a VA and start getting people to help you. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. I really love this. So what was the fourth thing you did then?
So the fourth thing, and this is, kind of one of the things that I do in my business for clients, is I set up funnels for connecting with new potential clients. Now, for me, I focus mostly on email marketing because I just, it has the best ROI, and it's the only thing that you own is your email list. So it's a great thing to focus on driving customers that way or leads that way. But I set up funnels in social media as well. Like, you sort of need to have a process of how you are going to connect with the people in your audience, the people that you're following, so that you can lead them on that journey if they're the right fit to becoming a client. So, it could be as simple as, like, you add a new follower on Instagram. Well, how are you going to connect with them? What's the system that you're creating to sort of build that experience so that you can lead them into maybe a call or tell them about one of your offers or something? And that's, how I literally get leads in my business every single day from the various funnels that I've set up.
And I love that as well, because on so many terms, people know what funnels are, but then you get people who don't know what funnels are. And for those of you that don't know what funnels are, they are basically just steps or strategies that you put in place, leading your client. And basically you're taking them on this amazing journey from one place, and you leading them, almost taking them by the hand virtually, and walking them through certain processes so they can obviously see what it is that you have to offer, but also to see how you can help them so they can get the results they want at the end of the day. So putting it very short, that's basically what funnels are. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Christy, if you want to add anything to that. But the important thing about funnels are, and this is something that I'm so passionate about, there's automations. You can put these up automatically, so it can run in the background for you. You don't physically have to be there 24/7 to manually incorporate this and do this every single time.
Right, absolutely. And, I think funnels sometimes get a bad rap because they, some people think of them as sort of, it's an impersonal, means of adding people, but that's not what I'm talking about at all. Like, it doesn't take away the fact that you literally need to connect and engage with people, but you're just sort of making the process a little bit easier on yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's what's so important as well, because apart from just talking about the funnels, but the email, for those of you who haven't heard me say this, building an email list for your business is an asset. You have to think of your email list as an asset for your business, the biggest asset you can have, because those are the people that you are going to nurture. And those are the people who are more likely to buy your products or services once they get to go through those final stages of getting to know who you are. And I think that's what's so important as well with you as a copywriter, because really having that kind of skill to connect with people via words, oh my gosh, that is really, really important.
Yeah. I mean, I think, so many of us, we make purchases based on emotion, right? So we really need to feel a connection with somebody. We need to feel like they get us before we're going to do business with them or invest in their services. So, writing is a great way to share stories and build community and like you said in the beginning, it's absolutely a skill that anyone can learn. There's kind of a system to it, just like, there are systems to everything. So, yeah, I mean, it's available to everybody.
Yeah. Now, can I just ask you, obviously this is now a completely separate question, but when it comes to copywriting, do you have a couple of tips that you can give the audience? Because I know some of them are now thinking, okay, yes, so I need to write emails, I need to connect with my audience, but I'm not a copywriter. Do you have 2 or 3 tips that you can possibly share with the audience as to how they can just start thinking a bit better of how they're writing content for their audience?
Yeah. So, in terms of emails, building an email list is super important, but you're not going to be able to monetize it if people are not opening your emails and reading them. So one of the biggest tips I have for that is that, it all starts with the subject line.
Yes.
You need to pick a subject line that is, engaging and interesting, something that kind of piques their curiosity without being manipulative or clickbait, right? Like, it should speak to what's in the content, but you can play around with it, like have a little fun with it, make it a funny question, or like a joke or something, or something that sets you apart, like that they're really going to want to click on it. The next thing is that you can, when you're writing anything, I always kind of approach my emails, especially as like an old school mom blog. I don't know if any of your listeners had blogs back in the day, but I was a mom blogger like back in 2007, 2008. And I kind of always open my emails with some kind of personal story or connection point, something that my audience is going to have maybe in common with me, or they're going to understand. And then I kind of segue into the content for the week, like whatever the email is about, whether it's a tip or a strategy or a promotion, but always starting with the connection point for sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing those tips. So for those of you listening, obviously, I think Christy has given you some amazing insight on how she started her business, how she's evolved, and how she's grown. And you know what? It is not rocket science. It is just something that you've got to do, and you just got to follow your heart. And I think what I really like about your story as well is the fact that, that I always say for any entrepreneur, there's ups and downs constantly. You had ups and you had downs, but the fact that you're persistent and you kept on going and you kept on growing and involving yourself as well. And noticing that in order to grow your business, you had to take certain steps and step out of running in your business, then putting the CEO hat on and working on your business. So congratulations for that. And congratulations for making such a success out of it in such a short time. It's really amazing. Before we conclude the whole podcast, I know that you've got a fantastic freebie for the audience, and it's about a 4-step framework to sell out your first launch. So why don't you just talk to us about that and tell the audience about the benefits of your freebie?
Yeah, absolutely. So I created, it's a downloadable PDF. It basically walks you through the process of setting up an email marketing funnel to automate the sales or discovery call process. So it takes you from, creating an opt-in, onboarding those new leads with a great welcome sequence, how to nurture them, and then move into the promo sequence so that you're making your offer at just the right time in your customer journey. So it's called the 4-step framework to sell out your next launch, and they can download it on my website, ChristyCegelski.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And for those of you listening and watching this video, the link will be in my show notes. So you can obviously go and download it there. And to be honest, I'm going to have a look as well myself, because I've got another launch coming up. So so by all means, go and have a look. And Christy's website will also be there in the show notes. So go and stalk her a little bit, check her out. And if you want to get in contact with her, by all means, especially if you are setting up a website, if you're writing content and you don't know what it is that you need to do, I'm sure Christy would be more than happy to help you out. Christy, thank you so much for being here on the podcast and sharing all your levels of expertise, sharing your success story, which is amazing. And yeah, I'd love to keep in touch and maybe have you back in a couple of months' time to see how you're getting on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Take care.